Hey guys, I'm not sure how this video is going to go, but I just watched Nosferatu today, finally. It's New Year's Eve, and I thought I'd make a video just reviewing it. I just kind of want to give my feelings about it. I can't promise that there won't be spoilers, so if you haven't seen it and you don't want me to spoil it for you, then yeah, spoiler warning. Anyway, I was really looking forward to Nosferatu. I like several of Robert Eggers' movies. I wasn't too thrilled about The Northman. The pacing is very similar. Nosferatu was my most anticipated movie this year. I really like a lot of Robert Eggers' work. I kind of suck The Witch too much. But Nosferatu, if I could sum it up in just a few words, let me think about this. Dream vampire cuckoldry is kind of what this movie is. So going into this, I decided not to even watch Nosferatu because I'm not going to go back and watch a 1922 film. I've seen some things on Nosferatu and it looks cool, but I don't have the attention span to watch that movie. I figured if Robert Eggers did good enough job with this movie, Nosferatu 2024, I'd be okay. So let's talk about a little bit of the plot of Nosferatu. By the way, I'm not used to this. I have no notes. This is just all spitballing after watching the movie. So if this sounds crazy or this is weird compared to my normal videos, that is why. This is not a normal video. So Nosferatu takes place in like the 1800s in Europe. They keep saying Germany. I have no freaking clue where in Germany because there's ocean there. I think it's in the north, but then they said there was a count. It was by some mountains. And if I'm thinking vampire, I'm thinking Romania, but Romania is pretty far to the south. I don't know. I don't know too much about the history of vampires in the first place. We start the movie off by meeting a couple folks. They're like, I guess, an actual couple, and they're folks. They're people. So we have Lily Rose Depp. She plays this girl who has a lot of bad dreams throughout the movie. And then we have Nicholas Hoult. Who's this guy? I didn't really care for Lily Rose Depp's character in this movie. She's kind of annoying. I don't really know much about her as an actress, but she wasn't an enjoyable part of this movie. The enjoyable characters in this movie sadly don't come until well into the second act. So one's name's Thomas, and then you have Ellen. So Lily Rose Depp's Ellen. He has a job that he has to do because he needs to kiss ass to his boss so that he can make a bunch of money to move them into somewhere fancy and nice because, you know, they're married and women don't work in the 1830s. He has him go to this count that wants to buy a piece of property near their town. And he's like, why would he want to buy that? It's like an old ruin, and we see it. It's completely in disrepair. So he goes and takes a trip off. She begs him not to go. You know, they just got married. I'm sure she'd be lonely that you want to be around the person you just got married to, especially back then, since a lot of people didn't do the premarital sex stuff. So yeah, you're having a good time. He leaves off, and this is where the movie gets really confusing. He rides off for a while, gets to this place. This movie is brilliantly shot. It's super beautiful. The first act here is really beautiful. He arrives to this little, like, village, and they're like, you can't go up there. Bad, bad. And he's like, I'll pay double for the room, and they end up giving it to him. They're like some gypsy people. Then we get to the weird part of the movie. He ends up having a dream, or at least we can assume is a dream, and he sees them riding a naked woman on a horse, all the village, to sacrifice this virgin girl to a vampire. They keep saying vampire or whatever. Vampire. I don't know how to speak Romanian or whatever gypsy people speak. I don't even know if they speak Romanian. Well, let's get on to that. They speak their language throughout the movie. This guy's German, or at least we can assume, even though they all have English accents. Dutch or German or Saxon, Swabian, Bavarian, Austrian, whatever he is. And then they're speaking that, and there's subtitles. The subtitles are kind of hard to read in a movie theater, unless you go to like a really nice movie theater, which I don't have a really good movie theater in town. The screen is going to be, because this movie's shot in a weird film aspect ratio, that they're all in like almost like a cursive style. I think it's a cool stylistic choice, but it's annoying to read. It's not like whenever you're watching a movie with subtitles normally, and it's just in regular font that you can just quickly read through it. I had to actually sit there and like focus on it to read it, and that kind of takes away from the beautiful like look of the movie. That's kind of disappointing. Anyway, he ends up leaving the next day and his horse is gone and nobody's there. It's really strange. I don't like, this all feels like a dream. He goes up to this castle where Count is at, Count Orlok. I don't even understand what happened, really. Like, it gets real dark, and then a random horse carriage comes and gets him, and I don't think there's people inside the carriage, but he still goes. He goes inside, this place is completely decrepit, and there's a strange guy that's speaking very annoying. One of my least favorite parts about the first part of this movie is I don't know what Bill Skarsgård did or what they did to his voice, but it gets really grating the way that Count Orlok speaks throughout this movie because he breathes like... and like breathing in. It's so annoying. It's very annoying. It's very But then he spends like several days there. He's kind of like trapped and like having like fucking fever dreams just until he ends up signing a contract. We later find out what this contract's actually for. I'm not going to spoil it, at least now. But he kind of gets tricked by Count Orlok, right? Then he's just kind of stuck there for a really long time. And we go back and forth. His wife, she's staying with a friend of hers and her husband, who just seems like a normal guy, but gets treated like he's an asshole throughout the movie. And the entire time she's having these weird dreams that are like really sexual. She's like, oh, come for me. Like stuff like that. And like writhing around it. It's funny if you're immature like I am. I guess because it's awkward, you'd have to be a little bit strange to not at least find it funny. But the sexual nature of this vampire messing with her, interesting. I think the movie really shines in the second half, though, or the second act, when we meet a doctor figure who's looking after Ellen because she seems like she's schizophrenic, just going crazy, having these weird dreams, seeming like maybe she's manic at times, too. And he's sitting there giving her ether and opium and shit just to calm her down, trying to get ways to help her actually be able to sleep. It's not until partially through the second act that we get to meet William Dafoe's character, who I think is a very big highlight of this movie. William Dafoe plays this professor that actually taught the doctor in this movie. He tells him like, hey, there was actually this professor that I went to school with, very, very, very smart, one of the top in Europe or whatever. He actually would know a lot about this. See, he lost his job as a professor and everybody thinks he's loony because he started looking into things like the occult and stuff. Well, he starts asking questions to Ellen and figures out quite a bit about her state, realizes a lot of the research he's done is actually based around this. So then we see a boat with Orlok on it. All these Romanian people are like, oh shit, we're on the cursed boat. So this is, but then the boat just like everyone dies on it and it crashes into the side and all these rats come off. So you have this cool like plague instance and everyone starts getting sick in the town. That's like going more towards the third act. But I like following around these two doctors. William Dafoe's character is just, I like him. He's kind of out there. When they first go up and talk to him about all of this, he's sitting there like, oh, go away. And then whenever he actually notices who the doctor is, he's like, oh my God. And he has this like super bright and bubbly attitude about it. I think them working together and like seeing the town slowly start to have all these people sick. They go to this hospital and everyone is like starting to show like what looks like the plague. I think all that's really good. But my problem is like the whole time that Thomas is at Count Orlok's estate and the whole time that Ellen is doing her dream shit and Thomas is also doing his dream shit, you're just bouncing around and it's pretty boring. I feel like the dialogue in this movie is pretty good too, which sucks that it gets split up by these annoying dreams where you're like, okay, are they dreaming or is this real? What the fuck's going on? I do like some of the shots where Ellen is dreaming about Count Orlok because it's gross. It's very sexual, so it's kind of funny. The monster himself, which in the first act, I think Thomas ends up seeing and tries to drive a stake through his heart, is he's just butt naked, jumps out, and his body's all crazy looking. Thomas wakes up with, like, bite marks in his body. There are things I like about this movie. A lot of it is the setting. Seeing the 1800s Europe, it's just beautiful. The dark atmosphere, the way that it was shot on like real film, it has a real good, like, old feeling to it. The movie runs a little long. The first act kind of completely takes you out of it, and then the second act tries to bring you back in, and then the third act is just kind of so-so. It's fine. The last scene of the movie is pretty cool. Here I'm actually going to get into some really big spoilers, so at the very end of the movie, because what happens is they end up learning a lot about Orlok and reading some stuff about him. Anyway, Lily Rose Depp's character has to like sacrifice herself to Count Orlok in order to kill him, and there's this scene of him like her on the bed while drinking her blood or whatever they're doing. It's really sexual. Look, she's butt naked. You see her tits. He's on top of her just drinking blood out of her chest. She like completely gives herself to him and it causes him to just kind of die on top of her and wither her away. The sun comes out and he like screams and all this black stuff comes out of his eyes and face and he kind of dies. It zooms out over top of them and you see his skinny like mummified legs and how gross he is. Like that's cool. Oh, I'm gonna add another spoiler. Watching Thomas hold Ellen's hand when she's dead with Count Orlok on top of her. Your wife died and you got cucked by a fucking vampire. That has to be terrible. Anyway, back to it. My biggest gripes with this movie are how slow it is. I hate the whole dream thing, even though I get that's the point of the movie. So if we've made it this far in the video and you're like, hey, the whole point of the video is that he attacks you in your dreams. I get that. It can be a little bit off-putting to randomly be shifting between. And the transitions in this movie, they're really clean. It'll like pan through a window and then be another day at a completely different place. And you're like, kind of like, well, is this a dream or is this real? This was a really hard shift. I think after I watch it again, if I do, I might like it a little more than I do now. I have learned since making this video, the movie is very similar to the original 1922 Nosferatu, so a lot of my complaints may or may not just be about a movie made in 1922. So I think some people will like this movie a lot more than I did. If you really like The Northman, I think that this movie's really long and like has a definite ambiance to it. Like, it knows its style. I am not too big into gothic horror. I like some of it. Vampires cuckolding men is crazy. That's kind of the movie. I think that if my expectations for this movie weren't super high, because I really liked The Witch, The Lighthouse, and I liked The Northman. That's like a 6.5 out of 10 movie. It's a good movie. I expected a lot of that too, was a little bit disappointed. I mean, I'm even more disappointed in this movie though. It didn't quite work for me. It's not super horror. This movie isn't scary at all. I think there's some pretty tense moments inside of the film that are kind of killed by how fever dream-like hypnotic it kind of is. The vampire design is kind of interesting, at least for the first bit that he's sitting there talking to him in the castle. I think that's really well done. It's just his voice is super annoying after a while. I like seeing how Thomas is put in this like situation. He's like, oh god, what the hell? But I think that the ratings, at least IMDb ratings, are kind of spot on for this movie. A 7.8 out of 10. I'd rate it lower. I think I'd give this movie a 6 out of 10, and that's not slighting this movie. I was just expecting something a bit more mysterious, a bit spookier. I like the old callbacks to Nosferatu with him coming down a hallway and you see his shadow and his shadow like teleporting places, and I think that the idea of him luring people in through their dreams is pretty cool. This movie, though, is very visually pleasing, but the dialogue and acting sometimes took me out of it. I don't want to be mean to the main actress, Lily Rose Depp, and say that she's one-dimensional, but it wasn't my favorite performance. I think that this movie is a good example of a really promising director having a just fine film, though. I left it feeling not disappointed, as I was saying earlier, probably isn't the best way to describe it. I left it feeling just a little bit let down. I wouldn't say it was full disappointment. I think that I got a beautiful movie with a quite fun story that wasn't engaging all throughout, but had engaging moments in it. It's not a perfect film, it's not a masterpiece, I wouldn't even say it's a good film, but I liked it well enough. I think that the beginning is just so slow, and when it picks up, I think it might already lose some people. Now, I went to the theater with my mother and watched this, and she was less than thrilled about the movie. She didn't like it. I could see some people being like her and just finding it extremely boring. But a lot of people say that about The Witch, and I really like that movie. I guess not all slow burn horror films by Robert Eggers are my speed. I think reading through the reviews like I'm doing now, excellent on atmosphere and camera work, not so much on everything else. I think that those things kind of perfectly describe this movie. The style, the outfits, all that, awesome though. I really like this look. It's really good. I can't exactly pinpoint what I don't like about this movie. I can't pinpoint exactly what I do like about this movie. I felt like the performances by the actors and actresses were kind of hit or miss. There was a cool scene when Orlok comes in and kills some people that I thought was fairly brutal. He just like grabs these little girls who are daughters in the movie, bites their throat and just tosses them like rag dolls. That's really visceral. You don't expect a movie like this to be super bloody and gross and like action-packed. I didn't want that going into it anyway, but I still left feeling like the movie was a little half-baked. Maybe vampires aren't really my thing and Nosferatu's not my thing, so that could be why. I didn't even know while watching this that Bill Skarsgård played as Count Orlok. The makeup and everything and how off-screen he is for the most part. I didn't know who it was. My mom talked to my sister about it because she went and saw it before us, and she said that she really liked it, and Bill Skarsgård did a really good job. I think that may just be my little sister having a crush on Bill Skarsgård, though. I liked Barbarian a lot more than this. Bill Skarsgård was in that. Maybe I'll have to make a video on Barbarian. I don't really know. Anyway, this video was just something a little bit different to kind of try to put my thoughts down on a movie and how I feel about it and how just confused I feel after watching it. I feel confused about the fact that the movie was just not what I expected. I didn't feel like I really felt anything for any of the characters. That's also a big problem. I didn't care if any of the characters died. I didn't care if they lived. I felt really indifferent towards the whole cast. It never really felt like it had any stakes. It felt kind of empty. It felt a little bit hollow. But by saying all that, vampire cuckold Nosferatu. It ain't bad. So thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed my little review of Nosferatu, a critic. Yeah, catch my next video soon. Should be pretty good. 2 back-to-back videos pretty fast, I hope. I've been working on them for quite a while. So peace out.